Okay, so let's go ahead and finish problem 3 in the homework for section 8.3. So part C is asking us to find the mean of the differences in the sample and the standard deviation of the differences in that same sample. Okay, so when you look at the output of a paired T hypothesis test, okay, it tells you that you're calculating the differences as the weight before minus the weight after. So the mean of those differences is this number here, so 0.916667. Okay, so that would be the mean that you're looking for in part C. Okay, and we're going to round that to 3 decimal places. Okay, so that 6 in the third decimal place will get rounded up to a 7, so 0.917 is the mean of those differences. Okay, so it's a positive difference, okay, meaning that on average in the sample, okay, it appears that the mice that became infected with pneumonia lost some weight on average. So on average, they lost about 0.917 pounds or 0.917 grams, or however the weights are measured. Okay, so 0.917 would be D bar. Okay, and then it asks for the value of SD, which is the standard deviation of those same differences. Okay, so if you carefully look at the output, it gives you the standard error, okay, which is not to be confused with the standard deviation. Okay, the standard error is different. Okay, so that's not very helpful. Okay, so again, the output here doesn't include everything that we need. Okay. Now, if you have it set up to where it calculates the differences for you, right, it puts the differences in a separate column. So these are the differences, right? So the before weight minus the after weight are these differences for each of the 6 mice. Okay, so if you want, for example, the standard deviation, okay, what we can do then with these differences here is go to summary stats, select columns. Okay, so again, we've got 3 copies of those differences, so it doesn't matter which one I select. Okay, and let's go ahead and get the mean and standard deviation. Okay, so the standard deviation we're looking for is 0.337. Okay, those are the standard deviation of these differences. So 0.377. So we're going to round that to 3 decimal places. Okay, I apologize. So I entered it incorrectly. It's actually 0.337. So 0.337. Okay. So that other 7 should be a 3. Okay, then we want the standardized test statistic. Okay, and that was in the output. So if you accidentally close the output, you can always look for it by going back to the StatCrunch menu in the upper left corner. And where it says results, right, 4 are hidden. Okay, you're going to select the one that contains the information that we just looked at, so which is for the paired T hypothesis test. Okay, the weight before minus weight after. Okay, so our T-stat, or standardized test statistic, if we round it to 3 decimal places, so 6.659. So hopefully you know how to round. Okay, so it'd be 6.660, right? So that 59 goes up to a 60. So 6.660 will be the test statistic. Okay, and then based on that test statistic, we want to know whether to reject or fail to reject the null hypothesis. Okay, so remember this was a right-tailed test, and our test statistic was 6.660. Okay, so in the previous part of the question, right, our critical value was 3.365. Okay, so remember for a right-tailed test, if your test statistic is greater than the critical value, right? It puts that test statistic in the rejection region. Okay, if it's for a right-tailed test, if it's less than the critical value, it's not in the rejection region, and if it's not in the rejection region, you would fail to reject the null hypothesis. Okay, so in this case, our test statistic is in the rejection region, so we would reject the null hypothesis. Okay, so then there would be enough evidence to support the claim that pneumonia, okay, causes weight loss in mice. Okay, so you kind of fill in the boxes according to how the claim is stated, and then you reject or fail to reject the null hypothesis depending on whether the test statistic is in the rejection region or not in the rejection region. So let's go and check our answer. Okay, and we've correctly completed problem 3 in the homework. Okay, so before we end the video, right, if you were kind of confused on, okay, how do I know whether to reject or fail to reject the null hypothesis? Okay, based on the test statistic and the critical value or critical values, okay, if there's more than one critical value, right, for this hypothesis test. Okay, so once again, we're using the t-distribution, which is bell-shaped and symmetric. Okay, so this diagram shows the rejection region for this right-tailed test, okay, along with the critical value, which is the cutoff region for the rejection region, okay, meaning that if your test statistic falls in the rejection region, right, if it's greater than 3.365, it's in the rejection region, you would therefore reject the null hypothesis. Okay, if your test statistic is less than that critical value, okay, you would not reject the null hypothesis. Okay, so in this case, our test statistic is 6.660, which clearly is to the right of 3.365, right? So since 6.660 is greater than 3.365, right, it would appear to its right, which puts it in the rejection region. Okay, so that's why we reject the null hypothesis, so we reject the null hypothesis in favor of the alternative hypothesis, right, which is the claim that was given in the problem. Okay, the claim in the problem is represented by the alternative hypothesis. Okay, so therefore there appears to be enough evidence to support the claim that pneumonia causes weight loss in mice. Okay, and that's the claim is summarized symbolically in the alternative hypothesis.